Thank you for being part of this journey. Celebrating 2 decades of Pacific stories. Brought to you by the Secretariat of the Pacific Community. Bonjour, kia ora, a very warm welcome to the Pacific Way. A high-level dialogue on climate change was held in Noumea in November 2014. Attended by Pacific leaders, the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, or SPC, hosted the meeting to discuss the real and important threat of climate change to the livelihoods and sustainable development of Pacific people. At this meeting, leaders called for a universal climate agreement at the COP21 meeting in France in December 2015. Let's take a look.
A tropical paradise in a remote corner of the Central Pacific Ocean now faces the perils of climate change. Like its Pacific Island neighbors, the Republic of Kiribati is quite vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. This is not only evident in small island developing states like Kiribati or Tuvalu, but in most least developed countries. In November 2014, the Secretariat of the Pacific Community, SPC, hosted a high-level dialogue on climate change at its headquarters in Noumea, New Caledonia. The dialogue was an opportunity for Pacific leaders to discuss real and important threat of climate change to the livelihoods and sustainable development of Pacific people. The one-day meet was held during the visit by the French President, His Excellency François Hollande, and his high-level delegation.
Well, we were very happy with the visit of President Hollande, and he came, of course, with his Minister of Foreign Affairs, Laurent Fabius, and one of their champions, gentleman Tokelau, who is the President's Special Envoy for the Protection of the Planet. So it was quite a high-level visitation. And then, of course, we had the leaders from the region. There was a general mood of optimism, people expecting, of course, that COP21, this is the name of the meeting, being hosted by France in Paris in December, where everyone is hoping that a binding agreement will finally come together. So there's quite a lot of optimism, I suppose. And of course the Pacific region as a whole, all the leaders agreed to speak as a region, are hopeful and offered their support to President Hollande and the French delegation to try and secure a binding agreement.
During his visit to New Caledonia, President Hollande and French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius joined the high-level dialogue on climate change, attended by Prime Ministers and Presidents from Vanuatu, Kiribati, Niue, Tuvalu and Cook Islands, and diplomats from other Pacific nations. Pacific leaders discussed the profound effect of climate change and related extreme weather events on fragile Pacific economies, on people's livelihoods, and on the access to food and water. Leaders welcomed France's role as host of the crucial climate treaty negotiations to be held in Paris in December 2015.
Let me begin by expressing how deeply grateful we are for this opportunity. We don't always get this opportunity, and especially so that you will be chairing the COP21 in 2015. I don't want to go through the stories that we have been telling year after year. I'm sure this is not new to you, Mr. President, But let me perhaps repeat some of what you have said. And sitting around this table, you will see some of the countries that whose lands will disappear, whose very survival is on the line, and for whom the threat of climate change is very real indeed.
Pacific leaders made a collective call for a universal climate change agreement to be adopted at the Paris Convention. One of the pillars of a global deal in Paris will be adequate and accessible climate finance for vulnerable countries.
We need a meaningful agreement, one that will ensure that our people in our part of the world can be assured that we do have a future. It is important that the global community will be able to give us that assurance, and we do look to France as a leading country.
The visiting president of the French Republic reaffirmed his country's commitment to advance the Pacific climate change agenda and put it at the forefront of forthcoming climate agreement negotiations.
Je suis devant vous, non pas simplement comme
I'm here before you not just as the representative of an important Pacific Community member country, not just as a representative of the host country for the climate conference, not just because your community has its headquarters here in Noumea, but I'm here because the situation is urgent and that we must be successful. This is an appeal for mobilization that I am launching here. So today, to keep you involved and informed as far as we possibly can in the lead up to the conference in Paris in December 2015.
In 2014, France committed €1 billion to the Green Climate Fund, with the US pledging $3 billion, a new global mechanism to respond to the ravages of climate change in developing countries. President Hollande also reaffirmed that France would push for a percentage of contributions from the Green Climate Fund to be allocated to the Pacific region. France would also endeavour to mobilize funds from the European Union and the World Bank, so climate change response efforts in the Pacific could be as novel and effective as possible.
France, we have recognized now, is the true friend of the Pacific by the very words that you have said, by the very actions that you have taken, by the very funding that you have provided. There is no contradiction at all, in my mind, with, and the leaders in this room, with all of us recognizing your contribution to ensure that this planet will survive into the future.
I think given what has been happening around the world recently, we have cause for optimism that there will be a satisfactory solution or agreement reached at Paris. This opportunity to have dialogue with the President of France is an opportune one. It's a chance for not only for France to hear firsthand from the Pacific leaders their views, their informed views about climate change, but also an opportunity for the leaders to convince France as the host for next year that there are some issues that should be taken into account in formulating a legally binding agreement.
Leaders discussed the profound effect of climate change on people's livelihood, including the access to food and water. This is evident in many small Pacific Island countries where this is a great challenge.
I think this is an extremely important opportunity to meet the President of France, and who is going to be the presiding officer for the COP21 in Paris, and hopefully where a global comprehensive agreement to deal with climate change would be concluded. And therefore I think it is extremely important to engage with the President of France, particularly from the perspectives of the small island developing states, the low-lying vulnerable island countries of the Pacific like Tuvalu, Kiribati and many others in the Pacific.
Over the years, since 1980, we have been... Yes, I think the French are very supportive of climate change issues, and they have, the President himself has pledged a huge amount of money towards climate change fund. So we hope that within the Pacific, who are a number of countries, probably around 14 or 15 countries who are able to support France and support countries who want to see a comprehensive climate change agreement at that level or at the UN level to be achieved. So I think France is counting on our support because although we are small, we have the same boat as other bigger countries at the UN level or at the international level, so we can make a lot of difference.
Pacific Island countries must continue to call for significant reduction in the rate of global greenhouse gas emissions to prevent further long-term change. The financial and technical support of industrialized countries is essential for small island nations, which are among the most vulnerable to climate change.
We hope that coming together, Pacific Island countries with a big and powerful country like France, we can make a difference insofar as climate change is concerned.
I'd like to have a binding agreement of set targets that we should meet. And China and America have already shown us a good example of that. But they're doing it individually. We need a global response to this global issue.
Despite the dire situation relating to climate change in the region, the dialogue about the emerging climate crisis with the French president ended with optimism and a joint commitment for action. Pacific Island countries and territories are working with the South Pacific Regional Environment Programme SPREP and other regional and international partners to develop capacity to prepare for, plan and adapt to climate change and its impacts.
I think thinking forward, looking to Paris in December 2015, I think it's important that we try and get together and get clear on our messages as a region well before that. So we're thinking about opportunities in 2015 where we might be able to do that. I think the French had committed to enabling and supporting Pacific Island states in participating in those preparatory activities before we get to Paris. I think a lot of work, I think most people understand that you actually have to try to get some agreement or near agreement before you go to Paris, because if you wait till Paris, then you may not actually achieve anything. So there's a lot of activities that are planned, a lot of global activities that we need to support our Pacific Island members to contribute to. There's a lot at stake here for the Pacific region, so we being SPC will have to do our best to support, inform and enable our leaders to participate actively in that process leading up to Paris.
The Pacific Island countries and territories are at the front line of climate change. Unless action is taken, the future of these islands are at stake. The call for a universal climate agreement at the COP21 meeting in France by the leaders would no doubt be timely. The onus is on large developed and industrialized countries to act responsibly.
Welcome back. You're watching The Pacific Way. Tokelau is a tiny island nation located in the world's largest ocean. In fact, its total landmass is only around 12 square kilometers. But Tokelau is a giant when it comes to energy self-sufficiency by becoming the first country in the world to be totally powered by solar energy. Let's find out more about how this remarkable feat was achieved.
Tokelau, an island nation in the South Pacific, is made up of 3 atolls whose highest point is only 5 meters above sea level. This tiny island has become the first country in the world to have all of its electricity needs met by solar power.
Tokelau becomes the first country in the world to not only to be renewable energy sustained, but we have met our gas emission target, being number 1 in the world, per person, And that is a huge achievement in terms, as far as we're concerned, because we are contributing, to the mitigation of climate change. And that is one aspect.
With global attention focused on the effects of climate change and the international price of oil, Tokelau has installed renewable energy systems that have dramatically slashed its reliance on imported fossil fuels.
Climate change is in the heart of our renewable project, when we actually begin formulating way back like 10 years ago, a policy, to combat climate change. So the success story that we have, the achievement that we have now, is actually was a result of we mitigating at the community level, also at the national level.
Powered 100% by solar energy, Tokelau launched its renewable energy project in 2010. This was completed 2 years later. The project has seen the island shift from being completely dependent on imported fuels to being completely energy independent. Previously, the atolls used diesel generator sets to provide electricity.
It hasn't been easy, but the success of this renewable energy, Tokelau renewable energy project, was when it became a community commitment. That was the base, or that was the foundation when our elders agreed, when everyone, even the children, were explained, this is the outcome we want to achieve by 2013, and everybody, agreed. So when we began implementing it, it was quite easy.
The Tokelau Renewable Energy Project trapped was a joint undertaking between the government of Tokelau and the New Zealand government and represents one of the largest off-grid renewable energy projects in the world.
A number of countries have established targets, roadmaps to achieve 100% renewable energy, and some are progressing towards their targets. At this point, let me commend and congratulate Tokelau. Tokelau has become the first in the world to generate 100% of its electricity in a renewable form.
I know the advantage to us. We are small, and we managed to achieve it. It's by no means we're saying to other countries in the Pacific they can't do it. So it has to be total. So I'm very, very heartened by the approach that other countries in the Pacific have taken. They have set, they have earmarked, the years that they will become renewable energy sustained. And if they do it, although they will be doing it in stages, but it has to be total, a complete approach to renewable energy, whatever, whether it be solar or wind or others.
The energy crisis in the Pacific is not confined to Tokelau. Most Pacific Island nations are highly dependent on imported fossil fuels to meet energy needs. But the Pacific is beginning to fight back, and the focus on energy concerns in the region has never been stronger.
We found that, the success will be limited. If there is a political will and there is no community commitment, you'll go half and half. I have to applaud my elders, for that visionary approach. They had that vision, and they supported, the political will, for we to go all the way, not halfway, but go all the way in terms of renewable energy.
There is renewed hope that many nations will follow in the success story of Tokelau and be motivated to bringing on the new solar energy generation. Almost all Pacific Island countries are now prioritizing development of renewable sources of energy as key objectives.
We challenge the world in this achievement that they should meet their carbon emission targets. Humbly, saying this in a very humble way.
Congratulations again to Tokelau, and thank you for sharing your story as an example to the rest of the world. Well, we hope you've enjoyed our stories. To find out more about the show, do drop us a line on our Pacific Way Facebook page or on YouTube. Until next time, ka kite anō, au revoir. Thank you for being part of this journey. Celebrating 2 decades of Pacific stories. Brought to you by the Secretariat of the Pacific Community.